Once upon a time in a Discord call.
Senpai, I'm telling the story. Once upon a time, Senpai and Saya were in a Discord call. I need cotton candy.
Wait, you got cotton candy? What the hell? You're not sharing?
I would if I could. And we were trying to figure out more ways to grow beyond just YouTube and streaming, because we are both obviously already god at that.
And because we are gods at YouTube and streaming, why not be gods on other platforms?
We were wondering how some VTubers were growing when not utilizing YouTube, because we were so sure that YouTube was the answer. Then we made a pact with the VTuber gods and decided to sell our soul to the Twitter devil.
If you'd sweet in the game, you'd sweet in real life.
The next morning, we decided to start an experiment on Twitter to see if it was actually worth the amount of time we saw other VTubers putting into it. We set up a few rules for ourselves in order to try and grow on Twitter. In conclusion to our research, we decided that you can do about 20 minutes a day. Ideally, you'd want to use Twitter when people are waking up or when Twitter's waking up. Alright, so we created a list of rules that we wanted to follow for this experiment. So the first rule that we decided to follow was to post a minimum of one meaningful tweet every single day. So Senpai, what do you feel like, what would you categorize as a meaningful tweet?
Something that connects with a person that's reading. Say, you guys got this, VTubing is something everybody can do.
So what about for people who aren't like educators, what would you say would be meaningful for them to tweet?
Something that gets them hooked onto what you're tweeting about. So if you're tweeting about a video game, maybe tweet about a cool update or a new experience that you discovered or something new in the game.
Yeah, I think that's super solid. And to add on to that, I think you have to analyze what is your value add as a creator, because we're educators. So if we're tweeting like infographics or something that's going to help somebody to get one step closer to learning about what they're doing or what programs they're working in. But if you're more of an inspirational figure, maybe it's inspirational quote. If you are, like you said, a gamer, that's like the option or the route you can take. So you have to ask yourself, what is the value add? Are you helping them learn more? Are you just making them feel good about themselves? So there's lots of different ways that you can create something that's meaningful or impacts somebody's life.
Absolutely.
Number 2, the next thing we decided for the rules we wanted to follow was to like or engage comment with a minimum of 30 people on Twitter every day. So actually, the person who came up with this was Senpai. Senpai thought that this would be a good idea. Senpai, tell us, why do you think that this was so important to this experiment?
It allows you to reach out to people that may be in your niche. So if you engage and comment with people that is in a game that you enjoy or a niche that you're in, it allows them to discover your page further and engage with you more often, and more likely to engage with you when you comment on something about your niche.
Absolutely. And it also increases your chances. Like, some people may feel like engaging with 30 people on Twitter is a lot, but it's really not that much. You can get that done easily in 20 minutes. The question is, when you're engaging with these 30 people, it has to be meaningful engagement too. Like, number 1, we said a meaningful tweet, but you also have to have meaningful engagement. So what's a good example of like meaningful engagement with somebody else on Twitter versus something that's not really going to help you out?
So something like, hey, I really like this tweet, or like say if they're posting something about their favorite game, interact with that tweet. Be like, okay, what about this game do you like? I like this game too. I like this and this and that about this game, and then go from there. A non-meaningful tweet is, oh, I like your tweet. You should come by and like my tweet too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, searching, like, people can definitely sense that energy when you're grabbing for specific things. And that's why part of the reason we labeled this whole thing like ways to organically grow on Twitter is because people can tell when you're faking that or doing that. So try to have that genuine connection. If you see a tweet that connects with you, like, act like you're having a conversation with a person, like IRL. Like, what would you say to that person if they came up to you and they're like, my favorite game is Detroit Become Human? You're like, oh, bro, I love that game too because da-da-da-da. Or somebody that maybe asks you, like, what are your goals today? I do a lot of those posts, and it's like, oh, you can engage with that tweet by sharing what your goals are. And the other cool thing about that is when you're getting involved with other creators, other people in your space, you start to build a level of trust, which can increase your chances to collaborate with them or for them to recommend you to like a sponsor, or just like they just think of you more often.
Absolutely.
Next, Senpai and I are going to talk about rule number 3, which is to tag or involve or message one larger influencer. This is super great
to be able to get your name out there, to get your name seen. So I'm going to tell you about some warnings about why this could potentially go not very well.
Okay, so another thing for tagging creators or other influencers or people in your space, there's so many people I've had on Twitter personally, Senpai, I don't know if you've had this, where people just tag you like randomly, like it has nothing to do with what they're posting. Yeah. That's really bad. You just annoy and make the person angry. Like, don't just tag them randomly, have it actually be relevant to what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Especially when you're doing that whole group tag and you're tagging 60, 70 people.
Right.
Don't do that.
Speaking of that, how do you feel about when people do like the last 3 foods I ate tag person? How do you feel about those?
Don't tag me. Don't tag me. Keep it relevant to VTubing, please.
Oh, man.
I get a lot of notifications throughout the day as it is, knowing your 3 favorite foods and you wanting to know mine. Come by the streams. That's where you'll find out.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because like there's some things that I'm okay with, but I get so, and then you feel pressured because then you have to tag other people and it just creates this energy that I personally just don't like. Another thing is too, like something I run into when people tag me and stuff like that, there's other things I'm trying to post on Twitter that day and then I feel obligated to interact with that or like also post my thing, and you should only really be posting so much on Twitter a day. You don't want to like spam Twitter, and then that creates an issue where you feel like you're spamming too.
There's also another thing to consider about, even think about, when you're adding a whole bunch of people into a tweet or multiple tweets, everybody that replies to that tweet is another notification.
Yep.
And then if somebody likes theirs, it spirals out of control and it's just endless.
Yeah, so this is probably a good example too of like things that you shouldn't. Again, take everything we say with a grain of salt. If you feel like it's working for you, go for it, but that's just been our experience thus far with stuff like that. Number 4 is to stay in touch with the trending or niche topics that have to do with the types of content that you create, and then create meaningful content based off of that. So I'm gonna give a quick example we'll pull up here on screen, and that is, for example, Vienna. She's a popular VTuber on C9, and she created this Squidward meme with VTubers where she says VTubers with full-time jobs or school, and then VTubers who can stream every day. This made VTubers pretty much go ballistic and freak out because they thought it was hilarious. So the VTuber section on Twitter has a very specific mood. There's lots of memes and there's lots of just funny things happening. So, and this is different for every single niche. If you're in like the tech niche, maybe your tweets will be like staying on top of tech news coming out and then talking about it, interacting with those bigger creators. But for VTubers, a huge part of their culture is meme culture. It's just big for VTubers on Twitter. So one way you can apply this is ask yourself like, okay, what kind of meme can I make in the VTuber section on Twitter that is relating to VTubers? And that might be able to pull attention or bring some attention to your account. So that's one way to do it, is trying to create common things that you see that exist within your niche. For VTubers, memes are huge, and we'll also give a few examples here. So I'm going to pass it over to Senpai to talk about something else that you can look at as well.
Yeah, another great example is false ID. He uses his Twitter channel and Twitter page to cultivate a whole bunch of news. So he'll scour Twitter for maybe some drama or anything new that's happening in the industry, but people will also tag him because he built a following with, hey, did you see what happened with 𝐈𝐻𝐿𝐿? Or hey, did you see what happened in this VTubing community? So on and so forth. So he's able to use his Twitter to connect with people and build a trust with them too, that he is the guy to go to for VTubing news.
And this creates the power then of being an influencer in that space while hooking onto trending and niche topics. So it was a really, really powerful strategy for him to get into, but we're going to talk about a few more examples. He, of course, has kind of like dominated the VTuber news industry, but I'll give you an example from my end too. While I might not be creating VTuber news like false ID, I focus on artists and VTuber stuff. So for example, for any VTuber who knows, when the hand tracking came out for VTube Studio and Live 2D, that was a huge thing that I would cover that false ID might talk about, but he's not going to go super in depth into it because that's not his channel focus. Whereas my channel focus is sharing that news and then explaining how to actually execute and use that tool. So again, I need to make sure I'm following people like Live 2D or VRoid Studio to be able to cover that news or to be able to interact with the trending topics that's within my niche. And we'll pass it back to Senpai to talk about his as well.
Yeah, so the things that that I cover is anything related to VTubing software or things that are new in the VTubing space, like add-ons and so on and so forth for OBS. So I'll follow people like Amelia from VC Face to see what kind of new updates that there are out on the market right now, and maybe it's something I could use for a possible future video.
Absolutely. And then that's powerful, because if you're using that as a future video, then we can go back and utilize the concept we talked about earlier, which was tagging one larger influencer, because now you're tagging that company, and now you're also using trending and niche topics. So see how these things start to stack to help you to be able to grow on Twitter. Now you have an influencer involved that might retweet your tweet. Now you're talking about a trending topic that's getting a lot of attention on Twitter anyways. That's a really good example. And then lastly, for one that has nothing to do with VTubing, for people who are not into it or just trying to learn a little bit from this video about growth on Twitter. So we'll talk about a little bit about Nintendo. They are a company that makes games, and if there's new games coming out like Pokemon, so for example, Pokemon, the new Diamond and Pearl remakes came out, and Pokemon Arceus. So if you're a Nintendo streamer that covers largely like Nintendo topics, Animal Crossing DLC just came out as well, how can you be involved in those topics? Is there a Twitter post that's talking about, yo, new Animal Crossing DLC, or like, did you get a new item from the DLC, where you can post and say, hey, so happy that Happy Home Paradise came out, look at this new item I got in Animal Crossing, or yo, just got a shiny Pokemon in the new Pokemon game. Again, now you're utilizing the trending niche topic, plus you can tag on and hook on to larger influencers, like tagging Nintendo and talking about niche. Hopefully you guys can start to put together the puzzle pieces here of sort of what we mean and what we're talking about. All right, number 5, don't post just going live messages. This is one of the biggest mistakes that both Senpai and I have seen on everybody's Twitter. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares if you just post that you're going live on Twitch, or you're going, like, how is that adding value to their life? So are several other people going live, but why should they go to your live stream? Like, what is that stream adding to their life? They're just like, yo, I'm like, yo, it's Syafire, going live. Granted, I'm a little bit established in the industry, so I might be able to get away with that, but if you're a newer creator, you need to convince somebody why they should go spend 10 to 15 minutes in your stream, or why they should go say hi to you. Again, for some people that are already established, they've already created some of that trust there. But for someone who's new, and even for someone like myself, if I have new Twitter followers that followed me but they still don't really know too much about me, it's going to be really helpful if I say, like, yo, in today's stream we're going to be covering this, or this is why you should watch this stream. And so Senpai, also, what are your thoughts on people who post just going live?
Yeah, every time I come across a Twitter profile that only has going live messages, I don't bother following, because there isn't anything else there. There's no substance. There's nothing for me to want to follow you. Sure, you may be going live on your stream. That's awesome. But why am I going to go live there? If I see tweets that I might resonate with, something that's either funny or clever, something like that, give me something to be hooked on your Twitter page first, then post those going live notifications will actually mean a little bit more to me, and that'll make me want to go to your stream and connect with you further.
Yeah, and it goes back to this idea that Twitter is like a digital business card for you. If you have a business card that's just spamming advertisements all over the place, but like nobody knows why, then it's nobody cares. Like, they're just going to throw it out. It's not useful. But what you need to create your Twitter as like a home page that creates a bunch of good substance and a bunch of good things for people to be able to collect, look at, go to, and craft it as an experience. And you don't want the experience to just be burger ad, burger ad, burger ad. You want the experience to be like, yo, this is how you make a burger. This is how you can make a burger homemade in your kitchen. Like, how can you add value to their life? Or this is why you should get this or do that. All right, so after all this experience, all this shenanigans, we did this for like 30 days on Twitter. All these rules you see here, this is what we followed on Twitter. And the big question is, should you spend your time on Twitter? Like, is that worth it? Or are you better off spending that time elsewhere? Will Twitter help you grow? Senpai, I'll let you open up with your thoughts on this.
I absolutely feel Twitter is worth it. It gives you a chance to bring new viewers, make new friends, and build some connections that you may have not had before. So Twitter, I personally feel, is absolutely worth it. It's a powerful tool, and there's no reason to not make one. And it's something you can also use to post your content. It has a lot of different and amazing uses. I would definitely start a Twitter.
I agree. I think it's worth it, as we said, though, because we both did kind of different experiments. 20 minutes a day. Like, if you don't need anything more than that. you kind of are just wasting your time. I feel like if it's anything beyond 20 minutes a day. So as long as you're checking in with people, looking at the trending topics, posting something that has to do with what you're doing, relating to other people, and you covered it, Senpai, really talking all about like making friends, making connections. My personal favorite reason with Twitter to interact with people and such is to connect with brands and kind of create sponsorship deals. I think it's a really powerful place to show brands that like you're legitimate and that you're someone that they can trust. So 100% worth it. Everybody should be including this in their schedule. If you do like weekly streams and a weekly YouTube video, please consider putting like 20 minutes of Twitter a day in there to at least slowly grow your Twitter. And really our findings is, I'd say like I got maybe like 3 when I was actively doing this. I'm a little bit behind now, but when I was actively doing this, like 3 new followers a day. And what about you, Senpai?
Roughly 2 to 4.
Yeah, and that's really good because it may not be quick growth, but it's slow growth, and you're building your influence, you're building your trust, and we can use everything that we could possibly get when it comes to growing our channels. Just one more person helps a lot. It helps us get known, it helps us build trust and become more established as creators in the industry. And you never know, one day you might post a tweet that goes viral like the Squidward and SpongeBob one, like Vienna did. Your life has changed. Now you are big time VTuber. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you check out this next video if you want to learn more about whether you should stream on YouTube or Twitch, because that's also a big question Senpai and I both had, and this video will help you answer those questions. We'll see you next time on the Sapphire Star. Bye!
Bye, everybody.